Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and this is a fun and crazy podcast we're recording. There are 2 people in the room with me and 2 people on Zoom. So audio quality, we think we've got it down, but I'm just letting you know, as I am about to let these 4 lovely people introduce themselves, that if you have audio problems, just blame Zoom, don't blame us. Blame the Zoom Corporation.
Generally, yeah. Do that.
All right, so who wants to introduce themselves first?
Oh. Well, Andrew's pointing at me, so I guess I'll start. My name's Cameron A. Mitchell. I'm one of the founding members and partners of Tequila Mockingbird Productions, and I am the writer-director of the movie This Sucks.
And my name is Andrew Menjivar. I am the filmmaker and director, cinematographer for Driven, the Tony Pearson Story, and also one of the founding members of Tequila Mockingbird Productions.
Woo!
And on our screen, we have the players from
Tony Pearson. My name is Tony Pearson, and I'm the guy from Driven.
It's the Tony Pearson story. It's your story.
It's my story. Yes.
April?
Hi, my name is April Denise Scott, and I'm the lead actress in This Sucks.
Woo!
Woo!
And of all things, the wonderfully titled Tequila Mockingbird Productions, I think I know one of the other people involved. Teresa?
Yeah, Teresa's our third partner.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And she has somehow been at the festival. I can't even recall, but...
At the Sherman Oaks Film Festival?
That or Film Invasion Los Angeles. She might have... It might have even been a screenwriting competition that we host there. But anyway, Wonderful name, by the way.
Thank you. I will give my partners credit on a lot of things, but I take full credit for the name.
Yeah.
That was all me.
Yeah, all right.
All right, well, for those who don't know, one of the things the main thing we do on this podcast is find out what inspires people to get into the arts, into filmmaking. The fact that you have something scripted and a documentary is always an impressive passion project, because talk about longevity and persistence necessary. And then doing something scripted is no less challenging. So...
And now take those 2 concepts that you just described and have them go at the exact same time, and you have our crazy...
Don't have them do that. It's terrible. Don't do that.
No, that's what we did. Don't do that.
So you made both films concurrently?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, we started filming. So the very first piece of footage we filmed for Driven was in November of 2020, because Tony was competing in a competition, and so we wanted to document that. And then from there, that led to the creation of the rest of the film. And then we filmed This Sucks in September of 2021. So we were still filming for Driven. We kind of took a pause because we were, in the middle of this other production. But we were filming, we were doing post-production, we were doing the edit for Driven. Then we filmed This Sucks and then started post-production on that one. And now post-production has dovetailed to the point where both movies are probably going to be finished within about a week and a half of each other, which is not something we would have expected.
Nor do we recommend anyone do.
Not even slightly.
And you have premieres lined up, yeah?
We do. Both projects are going to be premiered at the Golden State Film Festival, which is hosted at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood.
And they're both, and so you're actually grinding it out at the end?
Yes, we have. So by the time this episode airs, all of these problems will be far behind us, thankfully. But the screenings are February 25th and 26th. It is currently February 7th. So we have just these last few pieces of post-production for both movies that Andrew and I are pretty much hanging out every single night, well into the night, to crank out these final few pieces.
Well, I may have shown you the list of podcasts that are in line before this one, but by the way, you're allowed to curse on this. It has the explicit warning. I was just going to say, for shits and giggles, we could time it closer to the screening just for the hell of it.
Yeah, I mean, if that was something you wanted to do,
it's possible.
Okay, I mean, I hate to cut the line, but I'll cut the line.
Yeah, what the flip,
I don't think it hurts anyone.
I just want to go before Skylar's episode. That's all I want.
That's personal.
No, Skylar is delightful. And Skylar, if you're listening to this, I love you. You're delightful.
All right, so we're chatting, but who wants to talk about how they got involved in the arts and or Tony's passion of bodybuilding, right?
Mm-hmm. April, you want to start us off this time?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm kind of interested.
okay.
I don't know your whole backstory either, so this will be fun for me
What?
too.
And you can
You
go
don't
back
know,
as young as you
Andrew? I
want.
didn't know that.
If in
Okay.
nursery school you got started with acting, let us know. Like, go back as early as you need to.
Well, I guess I started. Well, art came to me, I guess, when I was a kid in like kind of preschool. I guess I started off sketching and drawing. And my teachers told my parents to send me to art school, but they couldn't afford it. So when I was in, I can't remember what grade I was in, but I think I was 6 or 7 years old. We had ballet dancers from San Francisco Ballet come to teach us how to dance one class. And I didn't realize they were recruiting. So they gave me a full paid scholarship, and I stayed in San Francisco Ballet for about 6 or 7 years, performed professionally in the Nutcracker for like 3 years. But then I had like no social life going into high school. So I left ballet, but never stopped dancing. I like did all kinds of dance in high school and was the captain of my hip hop dance team my senior year, and stopped after that, and even did some bodybuilding myself, and like did some CrossFit and weightlifting.
Tony's eyes just lit up.
Oh yeah, did he? And I'm still weightlifting, but slowly getting back into dance. I got out of retirement last year from dancing, and just slowly getting back into it again. And I'm actually planning to get back into ballet again this year. But I've always been into performing arts. I've always wanted to. I found out I could sing when I was 9. I've always wanted to perform, but my parents were like, "No, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer. There's no money in that." And I tried to follow their path, but after 6 years of being in the medical field, I was like, "No, I can't give up my dreams." So decided to train in acting because I knew I wanted to act, but didn't know how to really. So trained hardcore for 3 or 4 years before really putting my feet out there. And then as soon as I do, hey, Cameron, feature film,
April.
this sucks, So it was a really, really, really good first experience.
I have to immediately respond that I've met many people who grew up doing ballet and then moved into other arts. And it really is always a running joke that's so accurate that after ballet, nothing is tough. Like, I know people who've done improv programs that are super competitive, and they're like, and I just joke like, so was it less competitive than ballet? And they're like, oh, of course, the fellow ballerinas were awful to me.
That is so crazy that you're so smart. You're very smart, because I always have to educate people on that. Because I did modeling for about a decade, and people say, oh, that's a very competitive industry. And I say, it's nothing compared to ballet. Nothing at all. It's a very, very tough industry because you're competing with people in that small little school. And there's only one person that can get that spot in that show, the lead spot. So it's very competitive. It is.
Well, you still do some modeling, right? Don't you?
I do. But but I'm an actress. I love acting.
Respect.
I do, but my heart is in performing. I love to perform. So,
Oh, you're very good at it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Always ready for it. It's fun.
And did you know you had a former ballerina when you were directing This Sucks?
No. So actually, April getting involved with the project was kind of a total fluke. So we shot in September of 2021. And before that, we locked our cast in place probably around March, was it? Something like that. Yeah. So we actually had 2 completely different leads. So the main characters are Jess, who April plays, and then her demon, Jake, who Michael Hooper plays. But originally, we did not have April or Michael. So we had these other 2 actors, and then one of them who played Jess, she had to drop out due to a family emergency. The other one, the location wasn't working. He was in Detroit. We couldn't bring him over. So with about 6 weeks to go before production, all of a sudden we had to recast our 2 lead actors. And we locked on to Michael Hooper pretty quick. He was really funny. He had a great audition. He did some good chemistry reads for us. So we brought him on board. And then he came over to my apartment to film. So he plays this demon character for most of the film. And he's in this very heavy SFX makeup. The process takes about 4 hours. He's got makeup. He's got paint. He's got a wig, horns, costuming, legs, everything. And so Michael came over to my apartment to do a demon makeup test. And while he was there, I was kind of keeping him apprised of the situation. I said, okay, so we don't quite have our Jess yet. We got a few people who are pretty close, but no one's quite right yet. And he said, well, what about my friend April? And I said, well, who's your friend April? And the two of you were going to Beverly Hills Playhouse together, the acting school. And
Yep.
Michael said, she's really great. I think she'd be a good fit for the part. And I said, yeah, send me her info. And I think I reached out to you during that makeup test. I think I sent you that initial email, and April reached out pretty quick back, and she said, yeah, no, I'd love to do a self-tape. And her self-tape was amazing. And so we brought you in for a chemistry read with Michael. And I think we had 4 actresses doing those chemistry reads. And April was the last of the day. And the two of them together were just magical. Like they brought out April brought out something in Michael that we hadn't seen before during all of this lengthy auditioning process. And Michael brought out something in April too that we hadn't seen from her initial tape. And so after you left, Michael left, me and Andrew and whoever else was on that call, we just kind of sat there for a minute. And it's like, it's April, right? And it's like, yeah, no, it's obviously April. And so I reached out to you, I think again later that day. And I was like, hey, April, you're in our movie. Congratulations. Come over now to do the makeup test. And she was like, all right, let's do it. But it couldn't have worked out better. The 4 of them, the 4 leads, April, Michael, and then Emily Fletcher and Eric Flores, who play April's character's roommates. They're so good. They're so funny. I've seen this movie 50 billion times at this point through the editing process, and they still make me laugh throughout, which I feel like is a pretty good sign that they're doing something right.
Excellent. Of all things, I've got to mention that after 8 years of running film festivals, I have noticed the Beverly Playhouse comes up all the time with wonderful actors. Beverly Playhouse has such a good program. And they have their own little film festival where people shoot. So I think it gets people on camera much quicker than other acting programs around. So bravo. Good move.
Good move. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
All right, well, I feel like we got to be fair. Oh, here we go.
I just wanted to mention a really funny story. When we were doing kind of a script read over Zoom, to see just how the chemistry fit between all of the characters, between April, especially April being like one of the last members to come into the whole cast, just to see, how everyone kind of worked together. There's a scene where they're all kind of playing drunk. They just had a whole party, and it just felt like the most natural scene. It felt like they were friends for the longest time. It was a magical moment.
Wonderful. Well, I was trying to segue over to Driven so we can give equal time and get Tony involved.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
So how did
Hi,
Driven?
Tony.
And you sort of started to explain how Driven got started.
Yeah, so Driven, we started the process back in November 2020. That's when I met Tony for the very first time. We actually got involved with Tony beforehand because he just came out with his memoir, Driven, My Secret Untold Story.
Available now on Amazon Prime.
Please go ahead and purchase. And he wanted an audio book version of that. And so he actually, through a mutual friend, reached out to us, and we were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. We can produce an audio book. I think we should actually purchase the book and read what we're getting into. And so we got copies of the book just to see what we were getting into. And I was just taken aback because the story was so good from the very first chapter of that book. It kind of envelops you. A lot of the chapters, Tony just writes these scenes as if they are like movie scenes, but they're not movie scenes. These are things that actually happened, which makes it even that much more incredible. And then I had gotten wind that Tony was actually going to compete in a bodybuilding competition for the very last time before he retired. And I thought that I don't know what I'm going to do with this footage, but I'm going to go out there and on a whim, I think I had 2 days notice. I'm going to just go out to Vegas, document this moment. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but I felt like it needed to be captured at that time. And so I captured that moment. I went back and I actually edited a 10-minute concept, a 12-minute concept documentary of what this possibly could be. And I presented that to Tony. And what did you think, Tony? I forget. That was so long ago. What did you think of my concept
documentary? I think it was
documentary?
great. It was awesome. So, yeah, that was my last time on stage. I was 63 years old, and I've been competing since 1976. So that was the final showdown. And it was in Las Vegas. That's where I live. So that's why I wanted to finish it here at home and, just get in shape if I could for the last time. It's very challenging after 60. But I pulled it off, and then, I won my category, Master Universe. And, yeah, it was a great thing that you did. I was glad you was there, getting it on tape. That's great. On tape, yes.
Of course. Yeah, and in our very first interview together, you actually mentioned that several times about how difficult it is because, and I think this is a direct quote, is every decade your body changes and your body tells you that it changes, and you have to work even that much harder to try to overcome new obstacles that your body just presents to you.
Yeah, it's very challenging, and your body, like I said, your body changes, and you just got to learn yourself and keep listening to your body because it's talking to you the whole time. And, you have to change your workout, your nutrition, everything has to change. And if you want to continue on, like even now, I want to continue on training for myself to stay in shape, but there's a lot of exercises I can't do, a lot of foods I can't eat. So a lot of aches and pains you have to deal with, but that's part of sports, any sport.
I'm actually kind of excited because this is the first time April and Tony have been in the same, room together, but you're both so fitness focused. I see, April, I see you posting stuff all the time at the gym, and Tony, obviously. So I feel like you two would get along really well because of that interest in pretty intense fitness regimen.
I think so. I was saying, can you train me?
Oh, he can absolutely train you anytime you're out.
I'm a personal trainer. That's what I do. I'm a personal trainer.
Okay. Well, we'll talk. We'll chat.
It is pretty wild that your documentary and your scripted comedy have these kinds of things in common. Completely unintentional. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And then just to go right back to Tony, I just remembered what I was going to say. I did. I got there. That is a concept, a theme that we go over in the documentary of how Tony has to overcome some of these new obstacles because we go over his whole life story, but we do have a lot on his final competition. And of course, there are those challenges that Tony has to face before he goes back up on stage. And that's something I feel like not a lot of people totally consider when it comes to bodybuilders. You look at a bodybuilder and you're like, that guy is the most healthiest person in the world. And they don't really see the intense reality, the behind the scenes of, just exactly what somebody puts their body through to get to that level.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's pretty intense. It's, you got to, like you said, driven, and you just got to stay focused and just, even in the pandemic year, I still came back to compete in the same year. So it didn't faze me. My mind was set on what I had to do. And, just before the show, I quit a couple of times. I said, I can't do this anymore. My body's falling apart. I'm not losing the body fat. And then I said to myself, you never quit before, so you're not going to quit now. So that kept me going to get through it.
I was going to say, normally, just like we had April talk about what got her into the arts, but does it spoil the fact that Tony has an autobiography for us to read and this film to ask him how he got into bodybuilding? Or you want to get into that?
Do you want to give us the secret untold story?
Yes, it's a big secret
Keep
because for 40 years I said I would never tell the story, and I kept writing the story. You know how we hide stuff, you lock stuff away and you forget about it and you throw the key away, and then all of a sudden, I had a friend, she said to me, you need to be writing a story. And I went home and I started writing that day. I've been traveled the world and I won a few world titles, and all those people who read about me, they thought they knew me, but they didn't know anything about me. So I decided to put it on paper and just tell them where I was. I was raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and very poor and without a mom, without a dad. The struggle, the civil rights. I was in the middle of that. Dr. King was killed in my hometown, Memphis, Tennessee. So it's a long story. All the odds were against me. I was, African American, very poor, no family. But I wrote the book, just thought maybe I could help just one person, that you can survive, you can do the right things. You don't have to, get into drugs or go to jail or be angry. I'm not angry. I use that anger. This is a good thing for me in bodybuilding because I use that pain and that suffering to prepare for my shows. It goes pretty deep. It sounds good when you read. It sounds like a lot of fun, but it's a lot of pain and suffering. But you keep fighting. You got to be a warrior. Everyone says you can't do it, including my family. You're never going to stop lifting weights. You're wasting time. Get a real job. You hear all the stories, and then your competitor says you're no good. You're too skinny. You can't beat anybody. And then I was up against the federation, the IFBB Federation, and they was telling me, the doors were closed. I was outside looking in, and that's where I stayed for my whole career. But I was able still to kind of roll with the punches, go to Europe and go to New York and Australia and win some shows, and you just keep fighting. Even now, I'm still fighting. I'm still trying to prove myself because you always felt like you're just not good enough. But the main core of the story is my life growing up as a child. It's not a bodybuilding story. Muhammad Ali inspired me to get involved in sports. I met him when I was a kid, and to see this man in person, he's the heavyweight champion of the world. And I was just like, I got to find a gym, do something. And my friend says, hey, man, try out for the wrestling team. So I was very strong. So I made the team. And then I had an injury, and that led me to a gym back in St. Louis, and my great trainer, George Turner. And he saw potential in me. He saw something that I didn't see. During my whole career, I never believed in myself. Which motivated me to keep pushing myself even harder because you had negativity all the way around. So I just kept training harder and just kept pushing myself and kept my mouth shut. I said, my body's going to do the talking. I always show them I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, and now we're about to show them the same thing because we made a movie about that.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. And I think Tony explained it pretty beautifully there. That Driven is not, it's really easily marketed as like a bodybuilding or a sports documentary, but that's not really what it is. It is at its core this human story of how somebody survived and persevered in a world that quite literally didn't want them from the very start. And I feel like it's a story that pretty much everyone can just pick up and just relate to in some way. They can apply, whether they're an artist, a filmmaker, they can see themselves in Tony. They don't have to be, Tony ripped, but they can absolutely relate to that story on a, personal level in some way.
Now, after hearing Tony speak for about a minute, I immediately understood why you made a feature film about him.
He's very captivating and extremely watchable.
Yeah, Cameron keeps saying this to you, Tony, but when the cameras start rolling, you are just so watchable. You just read very well. Some people, you put a camera on them and all of a sudden it's like they freeze up. They don't become themselves. You don't do that. You just continue to stay who you are. And you just feel all of the emotions that, you go through, and it translates right across the screen to the audience. And finally, when we get to put it in the theater, I hope that entire audience, laughs when you laugh, cries when you cries, and feels exactly the same as you feel on the screen.
I appreciate it. I've met a lot of people, and they've read my book, and they go, "There's so many things in there that I can relate to. I've gone through this. I did this. This happened to me." And I go, "That's what I want. I wanted the people to know, hey, you're not alone." And I always felt that I'm alone. I hid my story because I didn't want anybody to know the truth. So, and I want to speak my truth, and set myself free because I was living a lie. So now, it's over. You have your critics and you have your fans, but at the end of the day, you got to do the best. Got to do the best for you. You know what I mean? Just stand up and be yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to shift over to the two gentlemen in the room with me. We've had life stories. We've had the Reader's Digest version of each person's reason to get involved in what they're involved in. How about you two? Who wants to go first with your story?
I guess I'll go first since I got the mic in my hand.
I won't fight you.
All right, so this is Cameron going first if you can't put a name to the voice.
So I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. It's not as exciting as it sounds, I promise.
I was impressed with Anchorage when I was there. I was impressed with the level of arts, and it's a creative community. One wouldn't expect that.
Actually, I was going to say the opposite. It's a great place. It's a beautiful city, but as far as creativity goes, at least when I was growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, that really wasn't the case. I mean, people just don't see that as an option there. I mean, you have your artists, but as far as writing, as far as filmmaking, that sort of thing, acting, things like that. I don't act, by the way. But that's not really an outlet. It's sort of something that other people do, and it's very alien. It's this very remote concept because Alaska's extremely fucking far away from everything. You got to get to Seattle first, and then you can go wherever you want. I've done the drive, and it takes 3 days just to get out of the woods before you see civilization. But it's at least back then it was not very creatively oriented, and I never really fit in. I had some really good friends. Obviously I'm close with, certain members of my family, but I just felt like I didn't really know what to do, and I was very aimless. And because it's so far away, I didn't even realize that these things were options. And so, I would watch movies. I would watch, I feel like this is not very unique, but I would watch the Lord of the Rings special edition, special features. And they had these very extensive documentaries that were behind the scenes, and everyone looked like they were having such a fun time. And they were talking about how they were making something special, and, they felt like they were a family. And I just remember, little 13-year-old, 14-year-old me watching that going, oh, that looks like fun. I bet they're having a great time. And then, 5 years later, it's like, oh, I could do something like that. And I moved to LA when I was 22, and it was like the door opened. It was all of a sudden, I was in film school, and I was meeting people who liked to write, and I was meeting people who would, I could explain that I was writing a story, and they wouldn't, laugh at me or have this like weird reaction like I'd grown a third head. They'd be like, oh, that's cool. What's it about? And there was all this, all these options that weren't available before. And so I was taking film classes, and I figured, okay, I'm going to make the most of this. Like I want to make a short film. I want to see what I can do. And so after my first semester towards the end of 2013, I made a short film with a friend of mine, and none of us knew what we were doing. We had a great cast. Everybody was having a lot of fun, but the movie didn't turn out great because none of us knew what we were doing. But, I learned a lot. And so I kept doing that. I would do a semester at film school, and then during the break, I would make another short film. And it was my second short film that was very ambitious, is the polite word, where I met Andrew.
I remember that.
It was called Campground, and we shot for 6 days. 3 of those days were out in the desert, middle of nowhere. Like we were camping. We didn't have a bathroom. Well, we had a porta potty that we rented.
You did.
We did.
What happened to that porta potty?
What happened to the porta potty?
It got tipped over.
It didn't get tipped over. No, Dan Murphy hit it with his car, but it didn't get tipped over. But so I met Andrew. He was initially going to do our sound because that's what Andrew did back then. That didn't end up working, but as we were going into post, he reached out to me randomly and he said, hey, I need a post sound project for this school project. do you have a post sound person for your short film? And we didn't. And so Andrew and I met up, and he ended up carrying a lot of weight on post-production back then, which has not changed in the project since. He completed a big chunk of the edit. He color corrected the film, which is his first color correction project. He did the post sound, and he just kind of helped tie everything together. And we had a lot of fun. And, you know, it was interesting. And we got to know each other a little better. We got to be friends. And so we figured, okay, let's keep doing this. And now fast forward, I think more than 8 years, but not quite 9 years later, we're still doing it. These are our first 2 features. This Sucks is my first feature as a writer-director, but Driven is technically my first feature because I'm producing it. And so because we started that, about a year before we started This Sucks, it's like I have these 2 first features that are both equally my first feature. And then Andrew's first feature is just Driven because that was the one that came first.
And was there a reason? It sounds like so you were working together for a good 7, 8 years, and then 2 features popped up. Was that you got sick of shorts? You were finally ready for it, or the ideas were so good?
Well, it was also kind of a fluke. So we were making shorts, and then was it 2017 that we started the company?
No, 2018.
2018 the years all blend together. So in 2018, we figured, okay, we've got a lot of practice. We're ready to make a feature. But to make a feature, you really need that, that legitimacy of having a company. And so we were working under the name of Tequila Mockingbird Productions, me, Andrew, and Teresa, just as like an unofficial thing for these short films, web series, things like that. But we decided, okay, we're going to incorporate. We're going to start a production company. And that way, we had the website, we had everything already, but we just needed that sort of corporate legitimacy. And so we started the company. And right away, we hit the ground running, trying to find, we had these different features that we had. He had some scripts, I had some scripts, Teresa had some scripts, and it was really just sort of let's throw all of these projects in the air and see what sticks. And so we spent a couple years still doing other things. We did some client work, we did some short films, we did some web series, which is where we met our incredible executive producers for This Sucks, Don and Kelly. Don and Kelly have done so much for us. It's really terrific. But Don and Teresa went to high school together in Watsonville, California. And now Don and Kelly they're called Two Chicks in a Truck. And they have this thing that they do where they go to, they call it, they're going to a pick. And so they'll go to a thrift store or an estate sale or something like that. And they'll find some weird, strange antique thing. And then they'll refurbish it. And so like one of their first projects, they found this old busted ass banjo and they turned it into a wall clock. And they have this really amazing dynamic, but they're also really smart and really shrewd as far as like business goes. And, they understand that art is art, but they also understand that there's a lot more that goes into it. And so, Don Kelly and we got to talking, and they were definitely interested in potentially, working in the movies because we did a web series with them and they had such a fun time doing it. It was kind of like you, Tony, with this documentary. It was sort of their first foray into media, into film. And they had such a great time, and they were so happy with the web series that we put together that they're like, yeah, we're Team Tequila Mockingbird. We want to work on more stuff with you guys. And then, just fast forward to where we are now. We started working on Driven, which again was kind of a fluke because I think you had about 3 days notice before Tony's competition to go down and film it.
I literally had to just scramble and, beg, borrow, steal equipment just to be able to survive the weekend there. Mm-hmm. It was a fun time.
What's amazing about it, he didn't sleep or eat for 20 hours or something.
That's right. That was not intentional. I didn't realize because I woke up really early because I didn't have a schedule for the competition. So I had to start my day at like 6 a.m. to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Realized that the competition wasn't until like 1 p.m.
Yes.
And there was a whole bunch of drama that I wasn't able to capture on the call. But I think I even saved you for this competition because I think you had bad information that someone said the competition was later at like 6 p.m. or something. And then I got wind, wait, no, the competition is starting at 2 p.m. And I'm like, Tony, I called you up. You got to get down here real quick.
I know. I panic. You get down as fast as you can. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to miss the whole show. But somehow it worked out, you know?
It definitely worked out. And, you know, that 12-minute proof of concept documentary turned into this feature. And so we were shooting the feature all through 2021. But at the same time, I had, you know, we were at the height of the pandemic. And I was getting involved with a lot of protests and activism and things like that. And I was very frustrated with how things were turning out. And so I kind of used this creative outlet. I was writing the script. And initially it was just one quick scene that I had written with a friend potentially to do for her reel, which didn't end up happening. But then I started talking to Andrew and our other producer, Ali Raza, about maybe doing a web series. You know, I had these characters that were just roommates, and it was just sort of silly web series about them doing Christmas in quarantine, essentially. And the more I sat with this idea, the more I thought, you know, I feel like there could be a lot more to this story. And so I started writing it, and I started fleshing out the characters, and I started fleshing out, you know, Jess in the movie, April's character has experienced a lot of what I was going through, specifically in, you know, early mid 2020 with the protests, with police violence, things like that. And so that was kind of an outlet for me, but I wasn't really sure, you know, when we were going to do it. I wasn't sure if we were going to do it. I just knew that I wanted to write the story. And so I'm writing it, and I realized, you know, it's a very small project. And with features, especially, you know, the biggest hurdle we had always come up against was that Andrew and I were first-time directors. People don't necessarily want to take a risk as far as, you know, funding, production, things like that. They don't want to take that risk for first-time directors because it is a risk. And for me, I'm like, well, how do you get people to stop being first-time directors if you're not going to help them with their projects?
Kind of a catch-22 there.
Exactly, yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, we have this very, you know, most of it takes place in the house that they live in. There's a very small cast. We have these demon characters, but our really great SFX makeup artist, Sadie Mars, she had just moved in with me. She was my roommate. And she was showing me her portfolio of these monsters that she could make. And I was like, well, this could be interesting. So the characters ended up having, especially April's character, she has this demon that follows her around. That's the physical manifestation of her depression. And, you know, we could make these things. And so everything was very contained. Everything was very doable. And it just sort of hit a point where it's like, okay, well, why don't we just make this movie? Like, let's just fucking do it. And then I won't be a first-time director. You know, you won't be, because we were pretty well into Driven at that point. And it was like, all right, well, this isn't ideal to do these both at the same time, but we've made it work so far. We haven't dropped dead yet, so there's that. Andrew's pretty close, but he gets that way. He powers through.
The vigor of youth.
Andrew's actually 67 years old.
I feel like it. I got 1 year on you, Tony.
Yeah, you do. Shame.
Well, that's a good segue for Andrew's story.
Oh, yeah. So where should we even start? I guess it all started when I was born. No. I feel like filmmaking is almost in my blood now. It's like it's something that I have started since I was very, very young. I was always this creative child. I think I was raised by the TV. My parents didn't have any cable growing up, so I was literally just raised on Saturday morning cartoons and The Simpsons and King of the Hill, because that's what you had during the weekdays. I think at some point my dad actually got one of the first digital cameras. And it was not like a DV camera where you had the tape. This was revolutionary to me. This was incredible. This was a camera that you could put a memory card inside, take it out, put it into your computer, drag and drop the file, and it's ready to go. You have a movie. It was incredible. And so I think my first films were actually me and my cousin just going around, and because the camera didn't pick up any sound either, and it had a recording limit of, I think, 10 seconds. So we were making 10-second silent films of, just changing costumes, and they were my actor. So I would direct them to do different things, and we just had 10-second scenarios. And so those were kind of our first films. And I just kept going with, I found the magic of kind of like the computers and the technology of what you can do to manipulate these images and create new things. I was essentially learning the things that a lot of these editing film theorists back in the early 20s and 30s they already figured this stuff out, but I was just learning it on my own as I was like, oh, if I attach this shot to this other shot, it'll make it look like this character is reacting to that thing that's happening over there. You know, the very basics that you find out in film school.
2013, sitting in the LACC auditorium. Jesus.
So that's what I was learning at, I think, 8 years old. And I would, try different things. I would experiment with like stop motion. I learned, if I took a picture of a toy in this position, then I took a picture and it was moved slightly, it would look like it was moving, and I played it back, and that was my first foray into animation.
I made weird stop motion clay movies when I was really young too.
So it was like, it was this discovery of just how can I take media and start manipulating it and just create things that people would find fun and they would enjoy. And that's kind of where I got my technical knowledge, is just playing around with things. And I think it was in high school that I kind of got more serious with like, all right, I got to hunker down and actually figure out why my timeline here is not working so great. Why am I so disorganized and all that kind of stuff? Eventually, it didn't take me too long, but I was pretty much the person that people would go to in my class to go like, hey, Andrew, what's going on with my project here? Why is something happening? And I'm like, oh, it's you just have it in the wrong codec, or oh, you deleted your file, so I can't help you anymore. So things like that. And that's kind of just where I really excelled in. It was post-production and putting things together. It wasn't until recently, I want to say 2016, 2015, that I actually picked up a camera again and really got serious with the camera and learned the ins and the outs of the camera and how it all technically works. And I think that only excelled the post-production side, because I realized, there's a bigger relationship between, capturing your media and how it gets handled all the way through the whole post-production pipeline. If you want your movie to look like the actual movies, it's got to start when you actually capture it and you know how to actually treat the whole thing all the way down the line. And as I was doing that, I became the video director at a radio station, which is always a conversation starter, because how do you do video for radio? That's crazy. They have a news division, and so I put together a concept of what a news package would look like coming from them. And surprisingly, overnight, it got like 5,000 views. And suddenly the station owners were like, all right, we want more of that. Give us more of that. Whatever you just did, do it again, over and over again for all of our news stories. And so that's where I began having more training in how can I tell a full story in only 2 to 3 minutes now? Because now I have to, and that's pretty much the documentary.
Short film, kind of.
And it's like sometimes you're interviewing people and you have half an hour, 45-minute interviews, but now I have to tell that story, condense that whole 45-minute interview into 2 minutes and tell me the entire story coherently. And sometimes it would be super fast turnarounds as well. So it'd be like, go out, shoot it, come back to the station, edit it. It's going to go live at the end of the day. So all in all, you had like a 4 or 5 hour turnaround from shooting to editing to final publish for the, all the audience to see. And it was intense, but it was good training. I think it was good training, especially for this documentary. I think I've only done one other documentary before I started doing all these news stories. And that was when I was in college and I took a documentary class. It was a really small class. I think 3 other students in that class. No, 5 other students in that class. 2 of them dropped out because of this professor was so very intense. I feel like we all have this one teacher in our lives that is just the most intense teacher. Tony absolutely does, and you get to see it in the documentary, George Turner. And I know, April, you must have had this experience being in...
she had ballet teachers.
Yeah. So I had this one film professor, and he happened to be my documentary film professor, and he was the most intense class I had ever been through, because he was very Italian and very passionate. And he would yell and scream. You would bring one of your homework to class, and he put it up on the projector, and then you'd have to present what you just did, and he would basically just criticize every little thing and yell at you in front of the entire class. And I loved it. It was great. It was amazing. It was intense. And that's why the other 2 students dropped out. But it never got to me. It only made me go, okay, I see where you're coming from. I see what he's doing. And it's like, just because you're yelling at me, it's not like he doesn't have a not valid point. He's making valid points here. So I'm like, okay, I'll take that into consideration and I'll make it better. And at the end of that class, I actually was the only student to turn in something that could be called a documentary. Everyone else kind of just I don't know what they turned in, but it wasn't a documentary.
I'm not. I have the opposite perspective on that for me, because for me, the second somebody is an asshole to me is the second they cease to matter. Like the second somebody starts yelling, the second somebody starts, criticism is one thing. And, sometimes you do have to be like, I've fired people before. I don't love doing it, but sometimes you have to do it. But, we have this very stringent no assholes rule on our sets, because I've been on so many sets that I wasn't in control of, where, it really just does take one shitty toxic person to ruin the whole thing. And the vibe is ruined, but it's also, you're working these long hours, these long days, and it's terrible. And so the second somebody is an asshole to me, it's like a switch flips in my brain, and I'm like, you don't matter anymore. Fuck off. And I will still, I'll still do what I have to do to finish the project. But at the same time, yeah.
So I will say that there is a fine line of I think there's a different definition right here. Because I can describe him as this very intense, passionate guy, but I feel like if somebody is an asshole, it's more like it's a personal attack kind of a thing. It's more of a where his was really directed completely at the screen. It was completely he wasn't angry at me. He wasn't trying to insult me. And I could clearly recognize that. He was just really Italian and really passionate. I can only describe it as really Italian and really passionate. He would yell at every little shot that I had. But it was it was not personal attacks. It was definitely not asshole-ish behavior. It's definitely not for everybody though, because you can take that and it's not for everyone. Tony knows this for sure. People probably came into George Turner's gym, got a little taste of George Turner, and they were like, I'm out of here. I can't do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was afraid of George. He said jump. I said, how high? Squat 400 pounds. I'm squatting. I never said no to George, because I knew the moment that I said no or I can't, he's going to go, there's the effing door. You can take it. I knew. I was young, but I knew instinctively, you better just listen to this guy. He's an ex-Marine. He was mean, but that's what I needed, though. I needed George. He got me ready for California. He said it's going to be tough out there. So he made sure he wanted to see if he could break me. That's what he was trying to do. And I didn't realize till many years later that George was trying to kill me, but he was just testing me. So it's
and I felt like that was kind of like what my documentary professor was doing. And I remember after class, he's like, "Hey, Andrew, stay after class." And I was the last one. And I'm like, "Oh shoot, what did I do here?" And no, it was like more of a personal.
He was doing the same thing to you. He was just testing your will. And you're going to run out the door and never come back, or you're just going to sit there and just take the beating and learn from it. He was testing you. That's all it was.
Yeah,
it was tough love. That was tough love.
So yeah, I stayed after class, and he was pretty much like, "Hey, I just want to let you know." It was almost like a heart to heart kind of a thing of like, "I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not, because you actually do have some really good stuff here. I just get really passionate about some of these little tiny things, and I want you to get better." And so that's kind of like where I came from, of like, okay, if a teacher is not almost this passionate or really into what they're trying to teach you, they don't really care about you. They don't care about it.
Well, in these endeavors, whether it's filmmaking or ballet or acting or bodybuilding, particularly documentary filmmaking, they're such difficult endeavors that you should challenge someone and dare them to walk away from it. Because if you can walk away from that challenge, you shouldn't be taking on that endeavor.
And yeah, that's very true. He absolutely challenged me to the max. A little bit of a weird coincidence, almost like a message. The day, I think it was Monday, we announced that Driven got into the Golden State Film Festival. Amazing, yes. But I got one of those notifications on Facebook, a memory 4 years ago. I realized that I had made this announcement of Driven on the 4-year anniversary of my documentary professor's death. And it was just, it was something that was, I didn't expect that. That wasn't planned. And it popped up, and I'm like, whoa.
Nice tribute, though, I think.
So it was almost, it felt like a message from beyond the grave there of like, announce your very first documentary feature, and here pops up the memory of, and his name is Guido Santi. It was a crazy moment.
I can't help but smile because there's nothing more beautiful than an Italian named Guido. Just cuts to the chase, doesn't it?
Very Italian, very passionate.
Well, that's excellent. And how you explained how you two met, but was it at the same film school, or was it just getting involved in projects?
So we met through a mutual friend. So while Cameron was having his film adventure, I was having my own film adventure with another film friend by the name of Charlie Kennedy. And
Charlie actually has a song in This Sucks.
She does. She was producing a short film, or she was going to direct a short film, and she asked me to come on as the production designer and a producer on that film. And I'm like, yeah, you are literally my very first film friend. I will do anything for you because I know you'd do anything for me. And so we produced this horror short, and the actress who played the lead in that, Michaela, actually was the connecting person, because later on I connected with her afterwards and I said, hey, I thought you did a really great performance. If you need any post-production stuff done, just let me know. She texts me later saying, hey, I'm producing this other film that just so happened to be Cameron's second film. And we met at a Coffee Bean, I believe.
Yeah, it was a Coffee Bean in Koreatown. Yeah. Michaela Cavalli, she works at Miramax now, so she's making some good decisions. She and I met. It was actually weird because I belong firmly behind the camera. I don't like getting in front of the camera. But I was 23 and I was kind of playing around and seeing like what I wanted to do and things like that. And I had responded to this call for extras, and it was down at the beach, and it was for, they wanted people who looked like they could be in school. And, I still look a lot younger than I am. I'm 43 years old. I'm not. But at 20, April, you didn't know this? I'm 43 years old.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm 31.
I was going to say, is 43 supposed to sound old? Because it sounds young to me, but go on.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But I was 23. I looked like I was in high school. And so I was like, oh, I'm school age. And so I went to this thing, and it was actually a middle school dance. And so there were all of these actors and people who were like 13, 14 years old. And then it was me. And then it was Michaela. There was this girl, Jessie. And then these two others, Kyle and Liana were their names. And so we were the only adults there who were in the extras pool. But we all kind of looked like we could be in high school, but they were using us a lot for this middle school dance because we knew what we were doing. And so Michaela and I really got along, and we were talking a lot, and we, we're getting to know each other throughout the day because it was a long day. And we kept in touch, and I started writing this thing that I knew I wanted to do something. And so I started writing this thing, and I asked, hey, Michaela, do you want to help me produce this and also act in it? Because she was acting at the time. She was like, yeah, absolutely. And so she introduced me to Andrew. And then we met our other partner, Teresa, at the radio station where Andrew still works. She was a radio personality there.
Oh, is that where I continue the story?
You can.
Okay. So yeah, and on the flip side of that whole story, I had just started work at the radio station, and I would,
And is that a radio station here?
It's actually out in Santa Clarita. It's KHTS Radio, AM 1220 and FM 98.1.
Because actually, Andrew, you did escape mentioning where you grew up. Everyone else mentioned where they grew up.
Oh, man.
Me too.
So I grew up, if we want to go all the way back, I grew up in North Hollywood. Then I moved out. Here we go.
Just physically shook his hand because I grew up in North Hollywood.
So I grew up literally 1 block away from that big Catholic church. So what is it? St. Charles, I think it is.
Oh, Lancashire and Moore Park or whatever? Or no, different one.
It's a huge Catholic church. I think it is Lancashire. Yeah, Lancashire. And I grew up in an apartment there, and eventually my parents, we moved out to the San Fernando Valley and Granada Hills. I recently moved right back to North Hollywood. Now I'm just a few blocks away from where I grew up.
But amusingly, you two have a very complimentary story. Anchorage, Alaska, so far away from the industry, it didn't seem like it existed. And North Hollywood, where you go to school, and probably a good percentage of the kids have parents who are grips or this or that, because
he's been here the whole
there's all
time.
The studios. And you actually, growing up here, you learn how many jobs there are that no one's ever heard of unless you are well familiar with filmmaking or TV.
Yeah, that's very true. I remember one of my high school film teacher saying he would also get really mad at us too. He would say that, you guys, you need to make better films because you are literally in the heart of Hollywood. There are people that are states away that are making better films than you. You are in Hollywood. You should be making the standard. And so I took that to heart, and I'm like, all right, I got to really hunker down and know my editing. I got to know how to create these things. And I created some of I want to say some of the most creative editing stuff in that class, where I got really experimental. I experimented with programs that were available to us, but nobody wanted to. They just wanted to do the bare basics. Get the edit done, turn in your film, and you're done. There was only, I think, a couple other students that wanted to do film as serious as I did.
I had a pretty similar experience when I was in film school. Like, I don't do the technical things. It's embarrassing how little I know about cameras. Like, you put something like this in front of me and I'm just going to freeze. But there were only a few of us actually doing stuff. And I was the only one who was actually going out and making my own projects. And I had a co-director for the first one, and she was great and she was doing stuff too. But besides the two of us, there really weren't many people in our class who were doing things. And I remember people, I don't remember his name, but there was another kid who he just thought it was so weird. He's like, wait, you just went out and filmed a short film? You can do that? Yeah, like what we just, we had to figure out where to get all the shit, and we had to figure out how we were going to pay for it. But yeah, you just go out and film it. And it was weird because I had this sort of like, there were people in my classes at film school who were looking at me like I was this, influential figure. And to me, it was just the natural thing. It's like, well, I moved many thousands of miles to make movies, so I'm going to try and make movies. So, and I was very serious about it. And there's people from that school who are doing some pretty incredible things, but there's also a lot of people who just, I don't know where they are anymore. It's like, some of them are still taking classes there. Some of them are still, they've gone on to other things, but it really is that, that mindset. And this is something that I heard a lot back then. If you can do anything else and be happy doing it, you go do that, because film is terrible and hard. And I heard that a lot when I was in film school, and kind of like you with Guido, I took that as a challenge. I was like, I don't have a plan B. I really can't. I don't think I will be happy doing anything else. So I guess I'll just fucking do this then.
I mean, I had the very same experience where it's just, if you have to really, really, really love film, the process of doing it. Otherwise, just you're going to give up. You are absolutely going to give up. This is not something that, you can just dive into. It looks fun, but you got to have the passion for it. If you don't have the passion, you are going to give up at the first sight of it getting really, really hard.
Well, you have to love the work, because you can't live for the results and you can't live for the reactions, because you just have no control over that.
Yeah, that's also very true. And I think that's where a lot of filmmakers, they got to just make movies for themselves. And otherwise, it's like if you keep trying to chase the audience reaction, you're going to drive yourself mad or become just over commercialized, I think.
Well, I'm really curious too, because we have these premieres coming up, and April and Tony, neither of you have seen the full movies. You've both seen snippets. You've both seen clips and scenes. You've both seen trailers. April did some ADR for The Sucks, so she saw some of those scenes, but neither of you have actually seen the complete full movie. And I'm terrified to sit. It feels like being back in high school, like presenting your project to the class. But I'm really excited for the two of you, and for, Michael, Eric, Emily, the rest of the cast, to see what you guys did and how you are so integral to these movies and how you really are the lives of them. And I'm really, really excited to see how you guys feel about them. And I hope they don't hate them. They're not going to hate them, right?
No. For the record, I'm actually the complete opposite.
I know we're funny. I know.
I am absolutely excited for Tony to actually see the full film. I'm excited to finally share it. It's been a 2.5 year journey of that documentary. And of all the bodybuilding documentaries that I've seen and researched on the way there, I truly feel like we've accomplished something that no other documentary in that genre has really gone for. We've really, truly built something that is different. We've crafted something that is like just baked in love and passion, and you can taste it with every bite.
I don't want to ruin your lives, but that's what I do. No, wouldn't it be wonderful now if you just decided to make a documentary about April seeing Driven at this film festival, and Tony seeing This Sucks?
Both screenings.
They're actually going to see. They're going to see the other's film, and you could capture that.
That seems like a great marketing thing. I like that.
I'm going to let you do that.
I'm going to steal
and you
that
have
idea.
two people who are fantastic on camera.
That is kind of fun, actually.
I think, we're okay. We have to do that now.
All right.
Because the odds of them premiering at the same festival, is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that is cool.
It's kind of funny too, because like we never would have dreamed that both movies would happen at the same time. We never would have dreamed that we would finish them within like a week and a half of each other. And we never would have dreamed that they'd premiere one day after the other. This Sucks is Saturday afternoon, and then Driven is Sunday morning. So it's like literally this whole road has converged into this one goddamn fucking weekend that is going to be great. We're going to take over the Chinese theater. We're going to make a whole big scene. We're going to turn it into this giant party. But we usually do. I never would have guessed that this is how this piece would happen at the same time, the same weekend, like less than 18 hours apart. It's kind of wild.
Wow. Incredible.
You are going to be emotionally spent when that's all over.
I am going to sleep a lot Monday.
I'm already emotionally spent.
Yeah, that's part of it too is, can I say this?
What can you say?
That neither movie's finished yet?
What?
No.
I think we already covered that, didn't we?
Did we? Oh, yeah. So
I think in the intro you mentioned how you were grinding out to the end.
You're right. I did say it already, so I'm going to say it again.
By the time you were listening to this podcast, we would have finished these films and all is well.
Yes, all is well, but it's a lot going because Andrew and I are doing the color on This Sucks. We're also doing the color on Driven. We did the sound mix on Driven very recently. And so it's just these last few pieces that are all happening at the same time. In addition, we also have to market it. We also have to communicate with the festival. We also have to do amazing interviews with amazing interviewers such as Jeff Howard. But there's just please tell me your name is Jeff Howard. I'm very tired. He's shaking his head at me. He's like,
I was shaking my head because I'm not good at taking compliments.
My name is Roger. No, you honestly, actually, I'm going to gas you up for a second because Jeff has done so much for indie filmmakers with this podcast, Discover Indie Film, with his series, Discover Indie Film, with your film festival. Like, you are a champion for independent filmmakers, and that's surprisingly rare in this town. For LA being like the genesis of film, the heart of film, it's very corporatized. It's very... I've shot in some really cool places. We did a short in New Hampshire once. I've shot in Denmark. Like, I've done things outside of LA and people get excited about it. And I love it because that's how I feel. In New Hampshire, we shut down the restaurant we shot in. They just shut down for the day. And they're like, oh my God, you want to make a movie here? Absolutely. But here in LA, that, costs several thousands of dollars. And if you go even a minute overtime, it's going to be several more thousand. And so there's this, it makes sense because it is a business, but it's also really, really nice, really refreshing change of pace to meet somebody like yourself who just really cares about movies and really cares about filmmakers and stories and, has not lost that passion for that. So thank you for being awesome is what I'll say to that, because he's not good at taking compliments. So I'm going to get really sincere.
Yeah, and in addition to that, Jeff, before you even speak, I in preparation for this podcast, I listened to like 2 podcasts, and I thought, I'm just going to do 2 podcasts just to get the feel for the flow, the whole podcast. And then 50 podcasts later, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm actually pretty addicted to this podcast. I really like it. I like hearing other filmmakers where they came from, learning that there are, some filmmakers had the exact same film path and experience that I did back in high school or, out in college. And it's really nice. And you kind of get different perspectives of how they think. And, it's really, really nice. So I totally appreciate the Discover Indie podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, go on to Amazon Prime and purchase the new season of Discover Indie Film.
And while you're on Amazon Prime, why don't you purchase Driven, My Secret Untold Story, written by author, bodybuilder, documentary star Tony Pearson.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. I'm actually going to step out for a moment. Not step out. I'm going to mention to April, because of her dance background, the next season of Discover Indie Film is all dance films.
Ooh, I've heard this. I've listened.
Wow.
I'm subscribed.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was invited to be a guest curator at a dance film festival in Exeter, UK.
Oh, nice.
And I said to the head programmer, you want to do an all dance season and you pick the films and I'll just sit back and do very little?
Oh, shit.
And she agreed. So actually, this is the first time I get to do very little.
I'm very excited for you. I would love to do very little.
I cannot get enough of dance.
Yeah.
I am the least graceful human alive. So I love to watch you graceful humans do your graceful things.
Well, and
I'm glad it looks graceful, but it feels painful and it's not comfortable. But I'm glad it looks good to all of you.
It's just that end result that people care about.
Exactly.
I mean, Tony will tell you, it's all about when you get on stage. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter what you look like at the gym.
Thank you. It doesn't matter what you look like at the gym. You own your bodybuilder when you're under the lights.
That's it right there. So.
Well, congrats on all this work and all this coming together at the same time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any are there websites and social media stuff that people should know and follow? All four of you probably have some kind of presence.
Yeah, absolutely. April, why don't you start?
Oh, okay. You can follow me at April Denise Scott. That's my professional social media. And if you want to catch workout things and, what I do outside of performing arts, it's april.living.life.
Do you have a website?
Not yet. No, I'm working on it. It's coming
Website
soon.
to come. How about you, Tony?
Website to come.
Tony Pearson personaltrainer.com. My IG is Tony Pearson 87, and I have a Michael Jackson Facebook page, Tony Pearson, of course, and that's it.
This is not just a random Michael Jackson reference. We go over in the documentary, but at some point in his career, he got labeled the Michael Jackson of bodybuilding. So,
and looking at those pictures, like, I believe why.
It's Michael Jackson with muscles.
Yeah.
And then I'm on Instagram at The Communist. We have Tequila Mockingbird Productions for our Tequila Mockingbird website. We also have thissucksmovie.com, which we're keeping pretty up to date as far as updates for This Sucks. You can get your tickets there, as well as the Golden State Film Festival website. We have our Tequila Mockingbird Instagram, which I believe is just at Tequila Mockingbird Prod. So yeah, we've got a lot going on between both our individual ones and Tequila Mockingbird.
Yeah, and you can follow me at Director Menji on Instagram. That's MENJI, Director Menji.
I also came up with that handle. Fun fact.
Oh, well, there you go. Director Menji, that's me.
Well, and I'll ask you for an email with all these so I can have clickable links. There will be clickable links in the show notes, which makes me feel like a podcaster when I say it.
Yes.
I guess I am.
What are we doing here?
Look,
it's only been
since
5.5. Yeah, since 2017. I still feel like it's just a hobby,
Yeah.
Same.
You just talking to a microphone. All right, well, I guess I'll do the wrap up. And then I may not have warned everyone in advance, but we do Andrew knows we do the 4 questions as its own podcast where we'll tear. Everyone will be able to tell us their favorite films, overrated, underrated, a lesser known film to seek out. That'll be the podcast after this one.
Okay.
Because otherwise it'd just be too long.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I am very verbose, so I apologize for that.
I'd still listen
it's okay.
all the way
I'm already
through,
ready.
But stay tuned. We're gonna have some really cool films that we're gonna talk about next.
Well, now comes the ending spiel. Which do you skip these two?
Oh, good God, no. I mean, I know them, but no, I don't. I got to stick it all the way out.
I almost feel like I should ask you to do it then, but you want me to do it?
Please. I want to see it in person. I'm here live. I can experience it in person.
Well, Cameron and Andrew helped me so much because you've already mentioned a lot of stuff. But if you want to learn more about the Discover Indie Film podcast or the TV series on Amazon Prime Video that was born out of it, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's at DIFWins everywhere. By the way, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Please smash that like button.
And be a kind person and support indie film and go to Prime Video on a nice big TV. Type in Discover Indie Film. It'll autocomplete somewhere along the way. Watch the films. It's 99 cents an episode or $7.99 for a season of 10 episodes. So think about that. $8 and you see 20 to 25 indie films where the filmmakers are like, these two made it for the right reasons, passion, because they had to make it. So $8, please.
It's like
totally worth it.
Yeah, it's like going to a film festival for only $8.
It's half the price of a movie ticket to watch 3 hours. Anyway, I'll stop begging, but I will beg to buy the show and then review it. give it 5 stars.
Please.
Okay, so now I need a minute because that made me so happy that you just said that. So, in addition to all these other things that Andrew does, Andrew actually plays a role in This Sucks. He is the very energetic, happy, optimistic, cheerful delivery boy character. And delivery boy, I need you to get into character for a minute because I'm going to make you say it.
Yes.
So at the end of every delivery boy scene, he's obsessed with our roommates. He wants to be their friend so badly, but he's so excited. So how do you leave an interaction, Andrew?
No, please give me 5 stars.
Delivery boy just needs those 5 stars.
I absolutely need the 5 stars. But in all seriousness, please give Jeff 5 stars in the Discover Indie podcast. Please give Jeff Howard and his podcast the 5 stars it absolutely deserves. And he will deliver amazing films right into your eyeballs.
They're wonderful films. And I'll add Sherman Oaks Film Festival, Film Invasion Los Angeles. Sherman Oaks Film Festival every November. Go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at Sherman Oaks FF on social media. Film Invasion Los Angeles, that's every June. Go to FilmInvasionLA.com or at Film Invasion LA on social media. And the new thing, I'm going to mention the new thing, which has a new name as of today.
Exclusive. We got exclusive here.
You want to go to watch?
Don't call it that.
It's exclusive.
Watch TVHi.com. WatchTVHi.com.
I love to watch TV.
It's a streaming service and or smart TV app where all the content is perfect to watch if you're a responsible drug user who can use marijuana without it hurting your life.
So it is literally watching TV high.
It's content for when you're high. It is. I have friends in recovery,
really?
so I take it seriously. Don't let drugs affect your life, but if you can use it in a way that doesn't hurt your life, makes it better, and you enjoy an edible at night or maybe a little something, watch TVHi.com is the place to go. Or you can go to Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV, iPhone mobile, or Android mobile. The app is everywhere.
That's awesome. I did not know about Watch TV High, and now I'm going to have to figure this out.
Watch TV High. Oh, TV High was born because I watch 1,600 films a year that get submitted to the festivals.
Well, higher.
And I see a lot of stuff, and I go, that would be even better if I'd watched it 3 hours from now when I'm,
when you're
winding up my day.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
When you're baked.
And that's
Hi. And then go over to the Discover Indie podcast and listen to a podcast from a filmmaker.
That's right.
Well,
and I guess, should I mention that Watch TV High is $4.20 per month if you subscribe?
Is it really?
Oh, that's beautiful.
And now that Tony's retired, he can,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can let loose.
You can afford to get the munchies more often.
We'll take some special California gummies together, Tony, if you want.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Is what they need.
You guys might need gummies at the Chinese.
Well, so that's the thing.
my God.
I don't drink anymore. I've been sober for actually 4 years now. But I do enjoy the special California gummies now and again because I feel like you kind of need that vice. You need that release. But Andrew told me that I can't take one for the screening because I get really bad anxiety and I'm already very anxious about the screening. And he's like, no, that's gonna make it worse. You can't take it before the screening. You're gonna make it so much worse.
As I said, it's about being responsible and knowing moderation and picking your times.
Exactly. Yeah.
Drive you to the hospital. I know you're not going to learn anything.
Andrew's gonna leave me in the
You can't
trash.
just smoke a joint. I mean, why do you have to take an edible? Edibles are like scary, you know?
No, see,
You can't just
edibles are really
smoke
like
a joint?
soothing for me because I also have like a messed up throat, like medically, and so if I smoke anything, it just hurts. So I don't like smoking, but I do like the edibles because they just relax me.
I'll
If
bring
you-
my
if you have the
tinctures with
dosage
me,
right,
so you know
you
you
start with a very low
you can
dose.
weigh out your
That's
own
the key.
doses, you know?
Yeah.
I'll do
I
that.
kind of just I have the gummies and they're each like 10 milligrams or whatever, and I just bite them in half and then I just coast through the evening. It's great.
You're
But I'm
kind
a
of my
bad
target
influence, I'm so
audience for
sorry.
high TV.
I know, when
TV
you-
High.
I know I sound like I do this all the time. I swear I don't, but like it is fun now and again.
Okay.
And I'm very excited for Watch TV High.
Excellent. I think
California,
we're
we're
good.
Is that going to be a cut on our first?
Well, we're not cutting yet, but I was going to name everyone one last time. Everyone say your full names one last time.
This is Andrew Menjivar, director for Driven, the Tony Pearson Story.
And this is Cameron A. Mitchell, writer-director for This Sucks. April and Tony.
Oh, this is April Denise Scott, lead actress in This Sucks.
This is Tony Pearson, author, Driven.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for taking part in this.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you, everyone out there who's listening.
Thank you.
Woo.
Wait to do this again. I love this podcast.
We're about to do it
Gummy
again.
bears.
Andrew's not going to leave. He's just going to be in your wall somewhere, just waiting for his chance.
Oh, Andrew and I are going to talk.
Oh.